Close the doors of your mind, close the gates of your mind, close the gates of your palace, your ba'ith, your ahal, your ohel, your tent, your mishkan, your mikdash, your haikal, and bring your body to center, bring your mind to center, bring your thoughts to center, bring your inward man to center. For today is a day of freedom. Today is the day that Yahuah has given to us as another Shabath, that we may cease from his labors, that he may speak with us between the evenings, that we may understand what it's like to walk in righteousness and purity of mind and purity of thought, with pure yad and kaf, pure regal, be pure understanding, what it means to walk as a kahanim in this world, as to walk in righteousness and sadiq and sadaqah with our hearts fixed on Yahuah Elohim. So today we acknowledge the one who made all the har of the earth, all of the nahar of the earth, all the rivers and streams on the surface of the earth, underneath the earth, and all the rivers and streams that flow from his throne, Yahuah Elohim, from his sapphire throne, from his kisei and sapphire throne that sits above you, that sits above your heart and your mind, that you may follow his instructions, that you may not harden your heart when you hear his call, his voice, that you may not harden your heart when you hear his thunder, his roar, that you may not harden your heart when you see that he is speaking to you. For Yahuah Elohim eyes upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers. But the face, the panim of Yahuah is against those who do evil and wrong. And that's every man that's ever been born into this world. And once you turn to Yahushua Mashiach, then you're no longer under the wrath of Yahuah if one continues to maintain the life that he requires in this life. So as we move forward in his love and his ahab and his truth, right? So this is the book of 2nd Ezra. This is the book of 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra chapter 14 and verse 10. 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 It says, "For the world have lost his youth," right? "And the times begin to wax old." Going up to verse 9. Actually going to verse, stay right there. Go to verse 11. "For the world is divided into 12 parts, and the 10 parts of it are gone already, and half of a 10th part," right? So you look at all these things. It says that in verse 11, it says, "For the world is divided into 12 parts," right? So you're saying why he said that? Because you look at the 12 tribes, you look at the 12 shalakim, you look at the 12 shalakim, you look at the 12 stones, you look at the 12 foundations, you look at the 12 gates in New Jerusalem, right? You start to count these things, but then it says, and it says, "For the world is divided into 12 parts, and the 10 parts of it are gone already," right? So you look at the 12 tribes, you look at the 12 tribes, you look at the 2 tribes that was going over to Rehoboam, and you look at the 10 tribes went to Jeroboam. But he said they are already gone. But guess what? And half of a 10th part, right? So you look at all these truths that one has to understand. In verse 14, "And there remaineth that which is after the half of the 10th part," right? So you said there's still something that still remains after the half of the 10th part. "Now therefore set thine house in order," right? So that's what we were doing since the first day of the first month. "Set thine house in order and reprove thy people," right? So that's not just your people. That could be your household, your Isha, got to reprove the children. Everybody got to reprove somebody. Nobody's doing anything correctly, right? "Comfort such of them as be in trouble." Why? Because you're going to have to. Because there's a lot of people in trouble right now. Because of all the evil deeds that they didn't do or got rid of. So a lot of people are going to be in trouble. And now renounce corruption. So now you got to renounce your carnal nature, right? Your carnal nature. Once you understand this 12 parts and this 10th part, you got to renounce your carnal nature. And it says what? Let go of the mortal thoughts, because you know mortal thoughts are your fleshly nature, your human nature. "Cast away the burdens of man." That's what you got to do. That's what we did from the first month. That's nicely why you had to do it from the first month, first day of the month, all the way to the 25th day, or even the 24th day, and maybe even longer than that. "Put off now the weak nature," because that's a weak nature that you have. Go from your outer self to your inner self, because your outer self is weak nature. It's weak. It's a weak being. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, right? Because everybody has thoughts in their mind. That's why we talked about casting away all the weights and the sin that so easily get you and put you down and weigh you down. Those are the thoughts in your mind. And guess what? And haste thee to flee from these times. Now you see why we took Pesach in haste. You say, so why we did all that? That's why we took Pesach in haste. And get out of here. Why? For yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. So now you see why you got to do all these things. And this is a repetitive practice. Verse 17, for look now how much the world shall be weaker through age. Just like how the earth is losing its vigor. It's not yielding any crops anymore, right? Everybody's destroying the earth, attaching copper rods 500 feet in the ground, sucking the life out of the earth when it emits electricity and doing all these things that they're getting ready to do, and sucking the life out of the earth. So guess what? You know how a person ages? The earth is aging too. And the older it gets, you know what happens? It dies. So much more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. So don't think that it's going to always keep doing what it's doing. You look at the consumption rate of human beings. Nothing's being replenished. Everybody's just taking from the earth. Right? You can't take what you put back in there. You say, I'm going to take it. Okay, if you keep taking and burning everything you take from the earth, then how much is going to be left? Nothing. Nothing. That's why they cut all the trees down. All the giant trees, they log it. Lumber, right? They call it lumber, but it's really just a tree. It's a tree that he made on the third day. You just cutting them all down. These are all things that are essential to the earth's field and how it works, right? These are all a part of it for human nature to connect. But guess what? You destroyed it all. And every tree you cut down, you destroy the air. And the more you cut down to build a road to funnel your ways through the world, through rivers, concrete rivers, and guess what happens? You create disease, famine, pestilence. You create that, right? But look how much the world shall be weaker through age. So much the more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. For the time is fled far away, and leasing is hard at hand. For now hasteth the visions to come, which thou hast seen. Why? Because now you see why we got to eat Pesach in haste. Because you see all the things that they're doing to the earth and how they're destroying it. So now that's why you got to do it in haste. Right? So this is the book of Revelations. This is the book of Revelations. Right? This is the whole point of this thing. It's the book of Revelations, chapter 11, and verse 5. Actually, book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 11, verse 15. Book of Revelations, chapter 11, and verse 15. Then the seventh Malachi blew his Turah, right? So now you see why Satan said, all right, my time is short. Right? Because he only got, once this month over, he ain't got that much longer. He got 6 months to get this stuff done. Then the seventh Malachi blew his Turah, and there was a loud voices in Shamaim saying, the kingdom of the world has come to the kingdom of our master, of our Elohim, and of Mashiach, and he shall reign forever and ever. So you look at that, and guess what? And the 24 elders who sit on the thrones before Elohim fell on their faces to worship Elohim. You know what Daniel did on the 24th day of the first month? What did Daniel do on the 24th day of the first month? That was yesterday. What did he do? He fell on the ground, didn't he not? When he met the Malachi. And Malachi came and revealed to him what? He's like, Daniel, I came to explain something to you. I came because of your words, Daniel. And guess what? Saying, we give thanks to you, Yahuah, Almighty, Shadi, who is and who was, as present, who was, as past, for you have taken your great power and begun to reign. That's how you know. That's how you know. He said, we give thanks to you. Why do you think that woman bowed her head when she saw the Malachi? Why do you think Abraham bowed to Yahuah when he spoke to him and told him to circumcise his household? Why do you think Mashah bowed to the ground when he saw the burning bush and he said, he put his feet, he took his shoes off and he bowed his face to the ground? Because these are all a part of the understanding of what one has to do and stay a humble. The nations raged, verse 18. The nations raged, that's what they're doing right now, ain't they not? And your wrath came. So the more they rage, just understand. Yahuah wrath, it gonna come. And the time of the dead to be judged. So the more they rage, the more Yahuah thinks about judgment. And guess what they also do? And for the rewarding of your Aydah, your servants, and the Nabi'im and the Qhdshim, right? We talked about your kind ones. Kasi, we talked about the Nabi'im. But it says, and those who fear your name, you need to know Yahuah's name. Right? And guess what? Both small and great, both child and old person, both poor and rich, bond or free. And get what he says? And for destroying the destroyers of the earth. So what do you think he's going to do to you? Look what you did to the earth. He says, so what happened to the earth? People don't understand what happened to the earth. This is Bereshit chapter 1 and verse 1. Bereshit chapter 1 and verse 1. Bereshit chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, in the beginning, Elohim created the Shamaim and the earth without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters, right? So when Yahuah sent the Ruach into the earth, because the earth was without form, it was already here. And then you see the destroyers of the earth. And what the destroyers of the earth are doing. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was or. What light? It wasn't the sun. It wasn't in the shamash that you see. It wasn't the sunrise and the sunset. It was his debar. For the commandments of the lamp and the Torah is a light. It's the book of Talim 119. And what? Or Proverbs chapter 6. What is it? Actually, going to Psalms Talim. Make sure, yeah. Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 23. Proverbs chapter 6 verse 23. It says, for the commandment is the lamp, and the Torah, the teaching is light. And reproofs and of discipline are a way of life. Why? To preserve you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. All this is all part of Yahuah's whole life, right? This Bereshit chapter, going back to Bereshit chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. Actually, 1 and 3. 1 and 2. Then the earth was without form and void, and darkness over the face of the deep, and the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was or. And Elohim saw the light, and it was good. He saw the teaching. He saw the understanding, being the Da'ath that was given in the earth. And he said, man, that's good. Because it's good news to the earth. Why? Right, so this is a book of Yeshayahu, real quick. Yeshayahu chapter 66 and verse, Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 18. Actually 66 and 1. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 66 and 1. It says, thus says Yahuah, Shamaim is my throne and the Arats is my footstool. So the earth is at his feet. So that puts the earth in a feminine nature. Just like when Yahushua was teaching in Martha's house. He said, Martha, Martha, you troubled out so many things, but she chose those things that cannot be taken away from her because she chose the teachings. And she was sitting at his feet. So you look at Yahushua looking at that feminine nature as the being that needs his teaching. And you look at the earth as that being that needs his teaching. And guess what? He put the teaching in the earth so that the earth will not be destroyed. The very same thing that he put it in the earth to save his bride. That's why he came and put the moon at his feet. And you know why he did that? Because he wants you to bow to the earth and let you know that you need him. But guess what they did to his bride? They destroyed the earth. Because the footstool is Yahuah's throne, and that's where he sends his teaching at. And you destroy the very place where he sent his teaching at. And that can be an Isha, it could be a feminine nature, it could be anything. You done destroyed the being that he sent the word to the bar in to save their life. That's what you're supposed to be, Adam. And now you done destroyed the Isha. Right, there are many Adams out here. A lot of Adams think they Adam, but they not. He's like, I'm Adam. Okay. No, you're not. You're not Adam. This is Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 25. Ephesians 5 and 20. Ephesians 5 and 20. 5 and 20. And it says, Give thanks to Yahuah for everything. Give thanks always for everything to Elohim, the Ab, in the name of our Master Yahushua Mashiach, submitting to one another out of reverence for Mashiach, right? So if you can't do that, you ain't submit yourself. And it says right here, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the master, right? So when Yahushua came and gave that woman a commandment at the Gon and go tell the disciples, she had to go submit to him what he said. And if she didn't submit to what he said, then none of this would be possible for us to be doing today. Then Yahushua will not have fulfilled the Torah, and we'll all be vaporized from off the face of the earth. And he'll have to send to do it all over again. And how long would that take? Right, to fulfill the whole book. For the husband is head of the wife, even as Mashiach is head of the body. And he himself is its savior. Why? Because these are all a part. That's why when he commanded Adam, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, neither lest you die. But everybody that was in his body was not visible. It was in his body though. She was in there. She was inside of Mashiach. That's why I say any man be in Mashiach, he's a new creation. Right? How you gonna be made all over again? Right? And get what it says. Now, as Mashiach, it says, now, as the body is submits to Mashiach, so also the wives submit in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives, right? So he's telling you to, husbands, love your Ishas, your Nishim, as Mashiach loved the body, and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify, or Qahalath her, having cleansed Qahalath her by the washing of the water with the debar. That's why Yahushua said, now you are clean by the debar that I spoke to you. People say, why he said that? Because he's trying to show you. So that he might present to the body himself in splendor without spot or wrinkle or any such thing. Look at the earth today. Look at the earth. Man, you don't beat the earth up. Right? In the same way you treat the earth is the same way you treat each other. Same way you treat the earth. You see how they beat the earth up, dug holes in it, bore holes in it, beat it up, put parasite tubes in it. Right? That's what they put them in there for. Right? Dam up the water, clog up the arteries. That's the same thing people do to the body. That's what they do. And then they block the water, control you. That's what Satan do in your body. He be blocking all the arteries and all these things with these things, and he try to block things so you can't get circulation. So nothing can grow. I'm sorry, but here we go. So that he might present the body to himself a splendor without spot or wrinkle, any such thing, that she might be Qahalath and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their bodies, their own bodies. So you look at that. That's why he looks at the body. He's like, hold up. The earth, look at the earth. Look at the earth. So this is why, that's how you know people just messed up in their body. Because look at the earth. So you notice the people who actually want to take care of the earth and plant the trees and do the things right, their bodies are a little different, and they take care of themselves a little different than the people who don't. They don't care. So therefore, he who loves his wife loves himself. You think Yahuah, for all he used to love the world, and he gave his only son. So you telling me he ain't love the world, earth, when he put his truth in there, when he sent his teachings in the beginning? Yahuah love the earth. Why do you think he said there's going to be new shamans and new earth? What do you think I love the earth. I want to make the earth all over again. Let me send my teaching in there again. Why do you think he's doing it? A new shaman, a new earth. Look what you're doing to the earth. You done destroyed the earth. You done beat it up. I got to make this thing new. I got to start this thing over. And it says, but nourish and cherish it. How you going to nourish and cherish the earth? when ain't no rain or snow, ain't nothing coming in there. Just as Mashiach does the body, because we are members of his body. So we are all members of his body. If you were in Adam, if Kuah was in Adam before she came out, she was already in there. The very same way, the earth is inside of Yahuwah's house, and at his feet. And guess what? Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his Isha, and the two shall become one flesh. And the very same thing the Isha has to do. This mystery is profound. I am saying that it refers to Mashiach and the body. However, let each one of you love his Isha as himself. Right? So everything that you see, everything has to be cultivated. The very same thing when you look at the earth, you look at everything, the same thing with a person's mind, in Isha's mind. You got to know when to plant something and leave somebody alone. You need to know how to do all these things. You learn that from the earth. You learn all that from the trees growing. We see how to take care of hair. Right? You can even see that with trees. You cut certain branches off and you leave some there. Right, so it can keep growing. This is all a part of the same thing. If you don't understand this, then you're gonna be destroying the earth. Ain't gonna be no trees anymore. Ain't gonna be no feminine trees. That's why ain't no more today. That's why they're using it. I kill all the feminine trees. Matter of fact, I kill all the feminine trees now, so you have nothing to eat, no fruits. Then guess what I'll do? Then I'll give you manufactured right, food from out of some store without some soil, right? Something crazy, right? Why? Because everything happens for a reason. Verse 33, however, let each one of you love his wife, Isha, as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. Why? If he does that. Right? So you got to look at that. If he does that, right? Not saying if he does what he just read, then. But if he don't, right? If he's just a sinner and doing all this wicked stuff, no. That's why the earth don't respect people today. The earth, the natural earth, that's why they don't respect you. That's why the earth will open his mouth up and swallow you up. Why? They don't respect you. It's the very same thing. Right, so we look at all that. I always start with something, but so this is the 25th day of the first month. Achad, Chdsh, right? So we look at the first month, we look at Nisan, we look at a hasty flight. We just talked about a little bit of that, even more. But we look at all these things that transpire that one has to understand. And if one doesn't understand it, then you got to understand what this first month is about. Because remember, everything's all about starting something and finishing, right? When Yahushua rose from the grave, he had many things to do. Even on the 16th day of Even, he told them, I'm going to meet you. And then on the 18th day, he met them. Then they got to the 21st day. He was commemorating all the things he's done. And then you get now to the 25th day. And many things took place. And there's a lot of things that he did that took place. This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, Yikra, chapter 23, 9 through 14. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the people of Yasharal, right? So, and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you to reap its harvest, you shall bring the sheaf of the first fruit, or bakur, of your harvest to the priest, the Kahan, right? So understand that you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a Qahalath nation. Show forth the halal, the praises of him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light, into this marvelous teachings, right? Say the light, the or, the teachings, right? It's marvelous, right? Verse 11, and he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuah, right? So these are all a part of you, your yard and your kaf, your branches in your hand. But guess what? So that you may be accepted. I thought we were already accepted. Like we did the Pesach, right? You did what we do? We did a lot of things. We did Pesach, we did Kag Matzah, right? Purify the Ayol out of your tent. We had to do a lot of things to get to this point. But he said to be accepted. Why? Because Yahuah is not about, he said, what you do yesterday? He said, like, no, what you getting ready to do tomorrow? Yahuah be like, this thing gonna continue on. He's like, man, I done did it. He is risen, everything is done, right? That's what people want to have in their mind, like they have nothing else to do. And then when you have idle-minded and when you have nothing else to do, then you go right back to sinning again. That's why when the cravings came back, you start to notice the cravings started to come back. Everything starts to come back. He's like, man, I can finally go eat something else. And then all these things started to come back. You just want to rush and go back into eating. And cravings start to come back. your mouth start drooling, you start to see all these things, and that's how people's lives are with sin. Right? When you have a pattern of not being, you have idle-mindedness, then you have a mind to go back to sin as well. So when you eat those things, it's like, man, cravings come back for food, but then you got to start looking at, okay, not just food, the cravings of certain foods coming back, but also the cravings of certain behaviors that you had to put away for so long period of time are going to come back as well. So this is why the self-control truth of yourself has to come out. You should feel yourself. If you've done it properly, you will feel all your cravings. You will feel everything that you desire. You will actually feel yourself even more. And you'll start to see, why am I craving this? Why I want to put this first before Yahuah? Why I want to put this before this? Or why I want to do that? But then these are all the parts of ourselves that are the weaker nature. These are the weaker nature. Right? And this is all part of it. It's hard for some people. That's why he says, giving honor to the Isha is a weaker vessel. But then also, Shaul said, in my weaknesses, I'd rather give kabod to Yahuah. Why? Because we all get weak. What's the point of you being strong all the time? Yahuah wants you weak sometimes. Why? Because if you don't never get weak, you ain't never going to need him. You ever see a child, I'm stronger than my father, right? Okay, so you ain't weak enough. You want to go, then that, we know what that do? That makes you want to go challenge your father, right? In the household, that's what they do. A father has to always be stronger than his son until he get old. But unless if he like Caleb, I wouldn't try it. You know how Caleb was. He said he had a different ruach. You were allowed to maintain his strength even to his old age. In the book of Sirach, he slew 3 giants. Now, everybody should be able to do this. Every East should be able to slay 3 giants in their old age if they do it properly. If you got the right ruach in you. But if you a coward, then guess what happens? Then guess who's gonna rise up and take your place? What happened to Dawid? He got weak. He ended up sinning, ended up doing things wrong, and then guess what happened? Here come his son to challenge him. Why? Because when you start to get, he's like, man, why he challenging me? Why he want to take the throne? Because that's what happens. That's what happens. But anyway, let's go. And on the day after Shabbat, the Kohanim shall wave it. So on the day after, it says on the day after the Shabbat Qahalath. Does it say that? Does it say the day after the seventh Shabbat after Qahalath? No, it don't say that. Does it say that the day after the first Shabbat of Qahalath? Does it say that? No. No. It doesn't say that, do it? Right? It don't. Because it's the day after the weekly Shabbat. The day after the Shabbat, the Kohanim shall wave it. On the day when you wave the sheaf, you shall offer a male lamb of a year old without blemish as a burnt offering to Yahuah. Why? Why do you think Yahushua Mashiach, why is he trying to show you a pattern? Because after a Shabbat, a weekly Shabbat, there should be something that you should offer. These are all just offerings, but he makes you do it in the first month to start it off. It's like kicking it off, right? We already purified our body. We did all these things to get to this point, and now he's like, okay, we now got back to the weekly Shabbat. Now I want you to start doing something from this day. Every Shabbat after the sun goes down, I want you to start doing this as a practice through the whole year. And that's the whole point of it. And I ain't telling you, because we know the male lamb of a year old was Yahushua Mashiach, right? That's why he was born and died. Behold the Lamb of Elohim who takes away the sin of the world. But he's trying to get you to understand an offering every single day in the name of Yahushua Mashiach. Every single, after every Shabbat, after every day, he's trying to get you to that practice. Because you're a Kohanim now. Right, verse 13, and the grain offering with it shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. Then we just read in Ezra. He said, man, the earth is in 12 parts. Then you got a 10th part of it, right? But it says 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, right? So all this is a part of it. A food offering to Yahuah as a pleasing aroma. Why do you think Yahushua said, as often as you do this, you remember my death and suffering till I come? Why do you think he keeps saying these things to us? As a grain offering to Yahuah, a pleasing aroma, and a drink offering with it, you shall be of wine a fourth of hin. Right? So you mean you gotta drink something and you gotta eat something at the same time after you wave your sheaf. And ye shall eat neither bread nor grain, parched or fresh, until the same day, right? Until you do it. Right? That's why when the sun goes down, you should already be doing this. Because if you wait, you know what happens to us. You forget. You start to spaz out. Right? You start to go back to your old life and what you used to do. And then you start losing out. It says, until you have brought the offering to Yahuah. So he said, Yahuah is trying to teach you, make sure you do something first for me. I don't want nothing else. I don't want nothing second. I don't want to be third. I don't want to be fourth. I don't want to be none of that. That's why Yahuah got a problem with us. He be like, so Yahuah, Yahusha, Isha. So which one you gonna put first? Yahuah like, hold up, right? And you shall eat neither bread nor grain nor parched fresh until the same day, until you have brought the offering to Yahuah. It is a statute. We talk about these statutes and judgments forever, throughout your generations and all your dwellings, right? So that word for wave is nuf. That word for wave is nuf. Y'all in your car, you ever clapped your hands? People say clap your hands. Because it gives off a vibration. Matter of fact, it'll make things run. It'll make animals startle. They'll start looking at you. Why? Because these are all a part of waving sheaf. Wave offerings in the air. Just like branches in a tree. When the wind blows on the top of the balsam trees, on the top of the juniper trees, the maple trees. Why do you think he make the leaves come out right now? He said, man, there are leaves on the trees. He said, I want you to see how the branches on the trees wave in the wind. Because you couldn't see them when they were bare. But now I got them on the trees now. So now you can go outside and see when the branches wave in the air. You can see it now. It's just like when you read in the song of Elohim, right? It talks about when the feminine nature passes on top of the balls, on top of the trees. So you look at all these things that you see, and you start to understand why he says these things. It means to move to and fro. That's what trees do. That's what branches do. They move to and fro. Wave, when you go to, if you've ever been in a wheat field or a field with love grass, they call it love grass, and the wind blow on top of it, the wind blow on top of the love grass like this on the top of it, and it blows on top of it. This is wave, it means what? To wave, it means also to shake, right? Shake, right? Right, it also means what? To be waved, it also means to vibrate. Vibrate up and down. What do you mean vibrate? Right? Up and down, vibrate. Because you got to give off a vibration, a sound vibrational frequency. Just like the whole earth has a sound vibrational frequency, your body has a sound vibrational frequency. And when that sound vibrational frequency comes off in the evening time, it allows something to happen. Right? It means rock to and fro, right? It also means rubbing. It says rubbing, and it means perfume and many other things. It means strike, but we're going to do that, right? So that word for day after, it says on the day after the Shabath, the Kohanim shall wave it. That word for day after is Makaroth. 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 It means tomorrow, the morrow, the day after, that Shabbat. Makaroth. The next day. So the day starts when? At evening time. Aydah, right? Aydah. At evening time. It starts with an iron. And you got to be able to see. Go down into the iron. Once you go down to the darkness, then it's like, man, it's time to offer. Right? We almost there. And it says the sheaf, right? The word for sheaf is omer. Or emer. It starts with an iron. Imer, right? Start with an iron. And you got to see it. Just like Aydah. Just like Aydah going into the what? The Arum with the Qahalath on top of it. You got to see it. Just like Aydah, you got to see it. Just like Anah, you got to see it. Like all this is all part of your offering. You have to understand it. Right? On the level that needs to be understood. That's why it says or as. You got to be able to see it. Put on your beautiful garments, right? It means, so the word for omer is a dry measure, 1/10, or a sheaf, a heap of a sheaf, an omer. a heap of a sheaf of an omer, right? So that word for tenth is it's wrong, right? So let's start with an ayin, because you got to see it, right? Just like you got to see everything, like Aynu, just like Aydin, right? You got to understand it. Ana, Anua, right? You got to see it, just like Ayduth in the Arum with the Qahalath on top. It means what? 10th part, a tithe, because that's what tithes has always been. Tithes, a 10th part of a deal. It's wrong, right? It's wrong, right? That's how it's always been, right? So that word for pleasing is Nicarag, right? That word for pleasing is Nicarag. It means soothing, quiet, tranquilizing. It says properly a restful, that is pleasant, abstractly delight, sweet odor, right? Because you don't want nothing that stinks. Just like they think about shitterwood, right? They think it's something that stinks. It's not. It's something that's inside of you. It's a understanding what's inside of you. It's a vibration. It's a vibrational knowledge, a vibrational frequency that's inside of your heart and your mind, inside of your aron, inside of your arc. And these are all a part of it. Because this is not something you do once. This is something you do every single day. It should be something you do every Erev, right? It should be something you do every single day. Right? You say every day, as people say. So it's a word for pleasing is Nikorach. And this is all a part of it, right? Every single day, right? Every day, right? So that word for aroma is actually, yeah. What's that? Yeah, that word for aroma, what did I do for? Yeah, aroma is Rayak. Right? Rayak. Yeah. So I think I did it twice. What did I do on tomorrow? Yeah. So for aroma is Rayak. Rayak. It means scent, fragrance, aroma, odor, scent. So it's a soothing scent. A soothing scent. A soothing scent, right? Rayak, fragrance, right? So it gotta be something that is a pleasing aroma. So it's something that has a scent to it, and it has a vibration to it. And you have to be that, right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 24, 17 through 22. You shall not pervert the justice due to the sojourner or the fatherless, right? Or take a widow's garment in pledge. Why? Because a widow ain't got nobody. You can't take a widow's stuff. Why would you do that? But you shall remember that you were a bod in Mizraim, right? You say that's what people in Mizraim do. They oppress you, take everything you got. When you're a widow, you lose your breadwinner, they'll still sue you. You lose everything you got, and they'll still sue you and take everything you got, and you'll still be a slave after they take everything you got. Even though you're down to your last little bit of money. But you still got a court date, and they still gonna take all your money. They don't care. They'll put you in negative 1,000, 100,000 when they got trillions of dollars. That's what they do. That's how Mizraim does. And Yahuah Elohim redeemed you from there, right? So that's what happened. So he's telling you, man, make sure you remember where you came from. He said, remember where you came from. What do you mean? You remember that time you were homeless? You remember that time you were sleeping in the car? You remember that time you were sleeping on the floor? Right? You remember that time when you were poor? You remember that time where you literally had $5 to eat that day? Or a little bit of currency. Remember that time? Remember that time you were starving and you didn't have no food? That's basically what he's telling you. You remember that time and you still had to go to work and you ain't eaten 2 days? And you still had to go do what you had to do just to get a meal for that day? He said, remember those times. Not the times when you got abundance and need and you're able to travel across the world, spend your money, go to different places and do all of that. No, he's saying remember the time when you couldn't do that. That's why he humbles people. He said, why he did that? To make you remember when you had nothing. When you were cold and it was cold outside, you were sleeping in your car and you didn't know which way to go, and I spoke to you to tell you to go here. Because then you hear his voice real clear when you're in that situation. When you got a bunch of stuff, you ain't hearing Yahuah's voice. It's more like, man, forget Yahuah, I'm going all the way over here. No. And Yahuah, your Elohim, redeemed you from there. Therefore, I command you to do this. So this ain't like you ain't supposed to pervert justice judgment you don't pervert the judgment due to the sojourner or the fatherless, right? Or take widow's garments and pledge anything from them. You taking stuff from widow's garment. You taking their possessions. He said, I command you to do this. Better remember where you came from. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a omer in the fields, right? So this is what he said. If you forget a omer in the field, right? So if you have a field, this is what? You shall not go back to get it. So it's like, I put it in the field. I put it out here in the seed and all the things, it grew. And he said, and you forgot to get the omer out. He said, don't go back to get it though. Don't do it. It shall be for the sojourner and the fatherless and the widow. He said, leave it out there. Don't you dare take it. That Yahuah, your Elohim, may barak you in all the works of your yard, your hands. Because if you leave it out there, man, see, it's free. You can have it. I freely received the seed. It ain't my seed. Remember, the earth is Yahuah's and the fullness thereof is his earth. The seed that I got ain't mine. And then when I plant it in the ground for free, it ain't mine. So when I take it, when it grows up, and I go to get the field, go in the field to get my omer, and guess what? And I forget it to get my omer, I shouldn't go back to go get anything that's free of charge to everybody else, right? It's free. And I already reaped my harvest already. I don't need to go back to get the rest. Now I got my harvest right, I done got it. So now I'm gonna go back and get the rest and pull it all up and so nobody else can have nothing. I'm gonna hoard it all. Right? No, you don't need to do that. And it says, you forget an omer in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. And that's what oppressors do. They'll make sure they get every last bit. You ever go see some of these fields you be driving by? You'll be seeing cornfields and all this stuff, right? And then what you see, it's cleaned up. It cleaned up. Like, it won't be nothing left for you. They make sure you gotta go to that store and pay that $6 to $7 to get that out of the store. They make sure. Ain't nothing free. I remember when I was growing up, it used to be plums, it used to be all types of trees on the road, side of the road, or it used to be like things. You just get a bag and grab some fruit, some pecans. Right, it was all types of fruit. Mango trees, you have to grab plum trees. That's when I was growing up. Now you can't do that no more. They make sure. But you better see that last little bit, it's on, make sure you put that over there. Private, people used to do that back in the day. Private property, you better not cross over, right? Before they used to let it be open. And people used to be able to do that all the time. Those are good old days. It says, the widow that Yahuah, your Elohim, may barak you in all the works of your yard. That's why ain't nobody barak today. It's the truth, though. It says, when you beat your olive trees, right? So, we need olive trees. We need that olive oil, right? Ye shall not go over them again, right? So, when you get yours, boom, you hit it one time. Don't you do it again. Notice how he say, when you beat your olive tree, don't you do it again. And then, he said, when you go on your field, make sure you don't take nothing else out of it, right? And he said, why you did this, right? Right, this is the book of Matthew, because this is all a part of it. People think this is a game. People think this is a game. Right, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 12. Matthew, chapter 12. In verse 1. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 1. At that time, Yahushua went through the grain fields on the Shabath, right? So what you think? So you look at right now. What today is? A Shabath, right? But his disciples were hungry and they began to pluck up the grain and to eat. So who that's for? The sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows, right? But when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful, was not lawful to do on the Shabbat. He's like, what you out here eating? They're picking stuff out of the field. He said to them, have you not read what Dawid did when he was hungry? And those who were with him, what did they do? They purified themselves and kept themselves from women. Isn't that what we just did? Isn't that what just happened? And guess what? And he entered the house of Elohim and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for him to eat for those who were with him, but only for the priests, the Kohanim. He's like, he did that on Shabbat. So what you worry about me for? I kept myself from eating y'all women on the Shabbat. They kept themselves from women. And guess what? Or have you not read in the Torah how on the Shabbat the priests in the temple profane the Shabbat and are guiltless? Why? Because they lit a fire every single Shabbat. Why? To make the bread. To do what? To eat. No, to offer to Yahuah and then to eat. What do you think they doing? They are Kohanim, right? They get to do that. So if they can do it, just like they say, man, I'm a Kohanim, I'm the priest, I'm the head, I'm the high priest, right? You know how they say? I'm the leader, right? He's like, so you can do that as the leader. That's what Yahushua like. Y'all can do that as the leaders and stuff. Y'all got our priests. The priests can profane and do everything they want. And nobody say nothing to them. So what you saying something to me for? What you getting upset at me for? I'm just doing the things that they do. And that's what people get mad at. He said, you ain't no Kohanim. I said, okay. Then why am I? Okay. He says right here, have you not read what Dawid did when he was hungry? And those who were with him, we already did that. We already know why he did that. How you think he's going to fulfill when he rose from the grave? How he entered the house of Elohim and ate the bread of his presence, which is not lawful for him to eat, nor though he was a king too. He was a malak, a king. You know how it says in Uzziah, this don't pertain to you. Well, it did to Dawid that day. It did to him that day, because he was both king and priest. You be like, why he said we king and priest? Malak king. Because he's trying to show you something. And how he entered the house of Elohim and ate bread in his presence, which it was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only the Kohanim. Or have you not read in the Torah how on the Shabbat the Kohanim, the temple profaned the Shabbat and are guiltless? I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. You're like, man, it's something greater than that natural building you go to, that you offer up. He said, I'm greater than that. And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. You will understand what I just said. That's why he was telling him right here, when you go in your field and you forget, you harvest your omer, leave something there, because that's mercy for the poor, the fatherless, and the widows. If you do it, and you don't, and you take it out of there, then you got no mercy on the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. That's the same way they didn't have no mercy on nobody during this time. And just same way, when you go and take your pledge, don't oppress them as well. Why? Because that's all a part of it. He says, you would have not condemned the guiltless, the guiltless. The son of Adam is master of the Shabbat, right? So are you a master? He say master of the Shabbat. Because you're so busy worried about me going in the field to get some food out, so I'm hungry. Just like Dawid and the priests profane the Shabbat, make bread, and they eat every single Shabbat. They do this. And then you upset at me because I'm telling people they can do the same thing they do. He's like, you would have cast a log out your own eye, and you would not have guilt, try to condemn me. That's what people need to do. And then in verse 20, going back to Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 24 and 20. And when you beat your olive tree, you shall not go over them again. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows. And when you gather your grapes of your vineyard, you shall not strip it afterwards. People say, why? And people say, that you know this man, right? They say, I know him. They say, you know him, huh? Okay, let's see. Right, so this is the book of Matthew, or this book is, what is it, Luke? He said, man, you crazy. Right, go in the book of Matthew 24 or 26. Matthew 26 and Matthew 26 and 64. Matthew 26 and 64. Yahushua said to them, you have said so, but I tell you, from now on you shall see the son of Adam seated at the right hand of Elohim. of power coming in the clouds of Shamaim. Then the High Kahan tore his robes and said, the priest that profaned the Shabbat every single Shabbat by offering and making bread and burning fire, them people who he has uttered blasphemy. What further witness do we need? Right? Because their court system corrupt. You have heard his blasphemy. What is your judgment? They answered, he deserves death. Then they spit in his face and struck him. And some slapped him. They did it twice. He said, when you beat your olive trees, make sure you don't go over them again. And he did it. Saying, now but to us, you Mashiach, who it is that struck you? He said, make sure you don't do it again and be an oppressor of the fatherless, the widows, and the sojourner. And guess what it says? He said, why they did all that? So this is the book of, that's what he was trying to show you in the book of Devarim. You know why they were doing that? Because they were oppressing the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows. That's the only reason they were doing it. Right, so this is the book of Matthew 27 and 27. Matthew 27:27. Then the soldiers of the governor took Yahushua into the governor's headquarters, right? They got a headquarters, the criminal headquarters. And they got the whole battalion before him. They had the whole battalion. So you know how many people they had to carry Yahushua? So you think they were just, Yahushua is harmless. No, they got the whole battalion. And guess what? And they stripped him and put on a scarlet robe on him and twisted together a crown of thorns, and they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, Hail, Malachah the Yahudim. And they spit on him and took a reed and struck him in the head. And when they mocked him, they stripped him of his robe and put on his own clothes and led him away to crucify him. Right, back to Devarim 24 and 20. And when you beat your olive trees, isn't that what they did to Yahushua? You shall not go over him again. Didn't they struck him again after they hit him one time? Then they said, Nah, but you Mashiach. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows. Why do you think he was beating the head? It was for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows. Because they were oppressing the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows. And they were gathering all their fields, and they weren't leaving nothing for them. So he said, you know what? I'll just take a beating for you people. Because they oppressing you, so therefore they oppress me. So therefore, if they do it to you, they'll do it to me. That's why when Yahushua came back right now again, everybody do the same thing. They'll beat him up because they're doing the same thing to you today. But he said, remember that you were a slave in Israel too, and you shouldn't do it to nobody else if you believe on Yahushua Mashiach. Verse 21. And when you gather your grapes in your vineyard, you shall not strip it afterwards. Right then they stripped off his clothes and his robe and put on the scarlet robe. Because you know what scarlet robe is? It's blood. You know what grapes make? And then they put a crown of thorns. What do you get out of a thorn bush? Grapes make thorns. They have thorns on them. And they put it on his head. You get what he said? It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. That's what happened. That's why he had it on his body. That's why they beat him. That's why they stripped him. That's why he had to do all that. Because people are just evil. The same thing they do today. Evil, rob. And you know what happens? Nobody cares. You know what the people do? They gas him up. Right? Make it clapping for him. Give him a waving the sheep for him. Right? They wave the sheep for him. Right? Clap his hands. Right? And these are all the things that people do. He said, we're not doing that. But he said, no. That's what they do. You shall remember. See, now you see why he's a car. He says, he told us to remember even to keep Qahalath too. He told us to remember this ain't not much watching. He said, as you do this, you will remember my death and suffering, because we have amnesia sometimes, amasia. That's a demon too. You shall remember that you were a slave, a bod in Mizraim, land of Mizraim. He said that's what they did to the slave to you in Mizraim. Why are you doing Mizraim behavior presently? Because you still in Mizraim. You still there in your mind, and you have not let it go. And that's why you are oppressing people. Fatherless, widows, and the sojourner. A sojourner could be a Malachite. He said, beware, we're entertaining strangers. Why? Because some have entertained Malachite unaware. You know they can shapeshift? They can shapeshift into human form and take on the form of an Aydah and just walk in your place. And they be walking in, sitting there, and then you start oppressing the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widows, and you be like, ain't nobody see me do that. You a liar. I ain't do that. I said that Malachite was right there taking notes. He be like, where that other person that used to be in here? We don't know what happened to him. You got one of those people in there that it came in there and you ain't know who they was, and you never got their name, and they say, man, it was a person sitting in here. Did you get his name? You ever had one of that happen? Well, understand. Some random person, understand. That person wrote down some notes, and you think on the day of judgment you're going to get away with it. Nope. Not one person. Not one person. Some people don't know about these things, but I do. I've encountered many of these things, right? But then at the same time, you got to be careful. Be very careful. Verse 22. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mizraim. Therefore, I command you to do this, right? So now you see why he commanded them to do this, and they broke the commandments. This is a commandment too. It's the 10 commandments. These are the commandments in there too. And the same commandments that they broke were the same commandments that Yahushua had to suffer for you. Same thing, right? So that word for bless in there, it says that Yahuah Elohim may barak you in all the works of your hands. Why do you think he baraked Yahushua in the work of his hands? That's why he says, hey, behold my hands and my side. I did it. I prevailed. I suffered for all these people. Why do you think he said that to them? Because he was trying to show them he baraked in all his yard, in his hands. It means to barak, to kneel. That's why you think everybody say every knee gonna bow and every tongue gonna confess. That's under the earth, on top of the earth, and in the Shemaims, in the Rakia, even in the first, all the way to the 7 Shemaim. Everybody gonna bow and kneel and barak. It means to be adored. It also means to salute, right? You know how they say they have a salute. Man, you the man, right? Right? You know how they put the salute up, and you gotta put your salute down first, right? Right? You gotta put your salute down first before they take theirs down. They're like, right, respect, right? You know how it says? Respect your husband. That's Yahushua Mashiach. You know how it says? You better respect your man. Right? You know how they say? To kneel, to barak, Elohim. It also means a curse. Because it can be a curse if you start baraking other gods. It also means to congratulate. Congratulate, to salute. That's how we salute. We congratulate people by bowing and kneeling. That's a congratulations? Yeah. Kneel before your maker. Right? That's a congratulations. All that's a part of it. So you say, so what's all that? That's all. It's called understanding. But it says, going to the book of going to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 1. Dabarim chapter 18 and verse 1. Deuteronomy, Dabarim chapter 18 and verse 1. It says, the Levitical Elui priests, Kohanim, are they going to, all the tribes of Lui shall have a portion of inheritance with Yasharal. Have no portion or inheritance with Yasharal. They shall eat Yahuwah's food offering as their inheritance. So now you see why Dawid, he said, man, you remember what Dawid and them did? You remember what the priests and them did? He said, man, their food offering is their inheritance. So that's why he told you to be content with food and raiment. It says, they shall have no inheritance among their brothers. Yahuwah is their inheritance. As he promised them. So who's your inheritance? It said Yahuwah is their inheritance. So is he in your inheritance? Have you inherited him? He said that's all you're supposed to be eating, the food offering. So what are you supposed to be eating? Lakam, bread, hot bread, every day. Hot bread. Right? And that's what you're supposed to be eating. It says Yahuwah is their inheritance, as he promised them. That's why you think Yahushua said, he said, make sure you pray like this. Give us this day our daily bread. Because Yahuwah is your inheritance. And you have no inheritance. He said, man, we ain't got no continuing city. We seek one to come. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, from those offering a sacrifice, whether an ox or a sheep, that they shall give to the priest the shoulder and the 2 cheeks of the stomach. Verse 4 says, the fruits of your grain of your wine, of your oil, the first fleece of your sheep, you shall give them. For Yahuah your Elohim has chosen him out of all your tribes to stand and minister in the name of Yahuah, him and his sons for all time. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a Qahalath nation, who show forth the praise of him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. Having food and raiment, be content. If you don't, then you ain't no Kahan. Second Peter ain't talking about you. Or Kaf, what do you call it? Verse 6. And if a Levi, comes from any of your towns out of Yasharal, where he lives, and he may come when he desires to the place that Yahuah will choose, and minister in the name of Yahuah his Elohim, like all his fellow Louis, who stand to minister there before Yahuah, then he shall have equal portion to eat. Why do you think when Shaul he said, what must I do to be saved? With a great earthquake in the book of Acts chapter 16. We're going to read it. But then he went into the man's house. First he taught him the bar, right? And then what he do? Then they went to get immersed. Then he brought him back to his house and he gave him some what? Some food. Because you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a what? Qahalath nation, who show forth the praises of him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. And it says, like his fellow Levites who stand to minister before him, then he may equal portion to eat, besides what he receives from the sale of the patrimony. When you come into the land that Yahuah your Elohim is giving you, verse 9, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practice of those nations. You know what people have done? You learned it. You had no choice. Man, you learned everything. And you learned it with the most sincerity and truth. Matter of fact, you got the spirit of it. And guess what? It's ingrained in your behavior. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's there. The only thing you can do, you have to translate over to Hakahanim, that Yahuah may be your inheritance, and his promises may come to you again. If not, there shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son and his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes or interprets omens, or a sorcerer or a charmer or a medium or a necromancer or a remote viewer or a wizard and portal jumper or a astral projector who thinks that they can jump inside of women's bedrooms and all the demonic things that they do. Right? I just added that, but in actuality, that's what people are doing. And it says, or one who inquires of the dead, or raises the dead, or the use of the book of the dead, or take one olive out, make one rise from the dead, and all this sorcery and magic. For whosoever does these things is an abomination in the sight of Yahuah, right? Poor demonic worship, right? Some worship of some spirit. And because of these, the abominations, Yahuah, your Elohim, is driving them out from before you. Ye shall be blameless before Yahuah, your Elohim. Now you see why you gotta be. Now you see what blameless is. And such things like these, right? It's other things. Rebellion is like sorcery, right? It's many other things. And guess what? You shall be blameless before Yahuah your Elohim, because that's the only way you can offer a pleasing aroma in your waving your, or nuf, your elmer. Because you're a priesthood, so you can't do certain practices so you can have those pleasing aroma offerings every Erev and Bakar. You shall be blameless before Yahuah your Elohim, for these nations which you are about to dispossess listen to fortune tellers, right? That's what they have on television. That's all they nabi'in, they prophets, right? The Simpsons, right? All these things they be showing you, and you be like, man, that's the truth, right? Not even knowing they fortune tellers and remote viewers, and they get this decrees that come from the Shamayim, from the first, second, third, fourth, and seventh Shamayim. And then they see them come through the Rakia, and then they go hurry up to the earth and try to proclaim it before it get here. And they do it through their sorcery, and then you deceived in your heart. They can do that too. And guess what? For these nations which you are about to dispossess, listen to fortune tellers and to diviners. Wow, they divine things. But as for you, Yahuah, your Elohim, has not allowed you to do this. So he ain't allowed you to do this. So when people start doing it, so what you doing it for? He ain't allowed. He not allowed. I can't listen to you. I can't be listening to you. I know you trying to predict the future, and I know you trying to say some stuff. And I understand that you got an ability to do that through other means. But if I use your other means, then Yahuah Elohim won't be my soul need. And he won't be my inheritance. And then I'll end up being like you. The same way. Right? Verse 15, Yahuah your Elohim will raise up for you a Nabi like me from among you, from your Akin, your brothers. It is to him you shall listen. Just as you desired of Yahuah your Elohim at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let me not hear again the voice of Yahuah my Elohim, or see this great fire anymore, lest I die. Because that was not the whole plan of Yahuah from the first place. That's why he said, I'm going to put these laws, this Torah in your heart and your mind. That was never the actual, that's why Aleph Yuchanan said, I'm writing these things about those who are trying to deceive you. Because the anointing is already in you now. Now you don't need nobody to tell you these things anymore. Why? I don't need to explain this to you anymore. You shouldn't. Because you believe on Yahushua. Ain't nobody in the world why have they explained this to people? Your drive should be that Kudash nation, that royal priesthood. You should already know this. You're supposed to keep a copy of the law anyway. In your heart and your mind. And Yahuah Elohim, and Yahuah said to me, they are right in what they have spoken. Actually going up to verse 16. Just as you desire of Yahuah your Elohim at Horeb on the day of your assembly, when you said, let me not hear again the voice of Yahuah my Elohim, or see this great fire anymore, lest I die. And Yahuah said to me, they are right in what they have spoken. I will raise up for them a Nabi like you from among their brothers, and I will put my debar in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I commanded him. And whosoever will not listen to my words, that which he shall speak in my name, his name is Yahuah. I myself will require it of him. Now you see why Kaziah was on. He had a gun to his head. He had a knife to his throat. He said, remember all that? Eat this scroll. Make sure you say everything in it. If you don't, and you don't want nobody, you don't tell them, then blood gonna be on your hands. But the Nabi who presumes to speak a word in my name, that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, the same Nabi shall die. Right? So you start looking at that. He said you're going to die. So what do you think you should do? Or Nabiyah. You know these Nabiyahs, Nabi be encouraging all these things? I said you better be quiet. Be very, very quiet. Because Yahuah ain't tell you to say that. And if you say in your heart, how may we know the word of Yahuah has not spoken? When a Nabi speaks in the name of Yahuah, if the word does not come to pass or come true, that is a word that Yahuah has not spoken. The Nabi has spoken it presumptuously. You need not be afraid of him. He said, so why he said that? That's all a part of it. But yeah, you don't want to do that. We almost finished. This book of Job, actually book of Philippians chapter 3 and verse 1. Philippians chapter 3 and verse 2. Philippians chapter 3 and verse 2. Look out for dogs. Look out for the evildoers, dogs. Look out for those who mutilate the flesh. Right? Why would we say that? For we are the circumcision who worship Yahuah by Ruach of Elohim and the Kabod Mashiach Yahusha, and put no confidence in the flesh. Why would he say that? Because the same people who were circumcised in the flesh during this time, the same people who just persecuted Yahushua, because Yahushua was circumcised in the flesh, was he not? Was not all the disciples that were with him circumcised in the flesh? Yeah. But were not the same people who were talking about them, the priests and the high priests and the Kahan and the Kahanim, the elders and all the people, when they circumcised in the flesh too? So you had a bunch of circumcised in the flesh people fighting against other people who are circumcised in the flesh. And the ones who understood the Torah that was circumcised in the flesh prevailed over the ones who did not do it. So you call it the Mul roll, the Mul wars. Because you know what that is. That's Shaitan and his Malachim fighting against Satan and his Malachim. Shaitan fighting against Mikal and his Malachim. Why do you think Yahushua was withstanding them? He said, have you not read what Dawid did? Have you not read what the priest did? Shaitan, Satan, you accuser? You would not have accused the guiltless. But see, I'm master of the Shabbat. I mastered this thing. I already know you're a liar, right? And that's how you got to be with Satan. If you ain't a master of this thing, they're going to get you. Satan going to get you. Remember, he always trying to catch you in something you say, right? That's both male and female. So you got to make sure you know what you're talking about. That's the whole point of this, right? This is the Codex Sinaiticus. We almost finished. Codex Sinaiticus, chapter 73, and verse 1. Codex Sinaiticus, chapter 73, and verse 1. Inasmuch, sir, say I, as I do not quite comprehend concerning times of the deceit and self-indulgence and torment, show me more clearly. So he's like, show me more clearly. And he answered and said to me, thy stupidity cleaveth to thee, and thou wilt not cleanse thy heart and serve Elohim. Right? So that's what happens to you when you don't move the Aydah out of your tent and you don't purify yourself for the first 16 days. Then you don't continue on and you don't follow Yahushua Mashiach. You know what happens after that? Thy stupidity cleaveth to thee. That's why when Yahushua came to them and he was in the field eating the food, their stupidity cleaves to them, and he was making them look like they were stupid. Because you don't really understand what you're doing. Because when you take the food out of the field and you hit your olives and you don't leave anything, or you go gather your grapes and you don't leave nothing, or you go hit your wheat field and you take your omer out, you already harvested it, and you go try to get another omer and you don't leave it for nobody. Guess what? He said your stupidity cleaveth to you. Amen. It says, the man shall leave mother and father and shall cleave unto his Isha. He said, that's your Isha. When you don't actually do what is required of you for other people, he said, now you got a stupid, you're joined to stupidity, right? You know, I say, why don't you just go get a job? You know how they say. I said, you really need to change your speech. The poor ain't never gonna go nowhere. You know, even though they try to eradicate it, ain't gonna work. And thou wilt not cleanse thine heart and serve Elohim. You can't serve Elohim in money. That's why he was telling them, you gotta make sure you leave something for the fatherless, right? And the widows and the sojourners. If you don't, take heed, says he, lest happily the time be fulfilled and thou be found in thy foolishness. Now you see why Yahushua said, I'm gonna come like a thief in the night. Remember he told that man, he said, man, I'm gonna build another barn, store up all my crops and things that I grew. He said, this night your soul gonna be required. Don't let him catch you in your foolishness. Listen then, saith he, even as thou wishest that thou mayest comprehend the matter. He that liveth in self-indulgence and is deceived for one day, and doeth what he wisheth, is clothed in much folly, and comprehendeth not the thing which he doeth. For on the morrow he forgetteth what he did the day before. Isn't that what we're supposed to do tomorrow? When the sun goes down, we wave the sheep. But he said, man, you must have forgot what you did the day before. Do you remember what you did? He said, for self-indulgence and deceit have no memories, by reason of the folly with which each is clothed. So that's the whole point. It erase your memory. It make you, why do you think it tells us to remember? Remember, Zakar, remember. It's not over till it's over. Remember, right? You gotta remember, man, or you're gonna forget. Not the thing which he doeth. For on the morrow he forgetteth what what he did the day before. For self-indulgence and deceit have no memories, by reason of the folly wherewith each is clothed. But when punishment and torment clings to a man for a single day, he is punished and tormented for a whole year long. For punishment and torment have long memories. So being tormented and punished for a whole year, the man remembers a length the self-indulgence and deceit, and perceiveth that it is on their account that he is suffering for these ills, right? So look at all these things that we do, right? We ain't talking about people who go make up things, and right, that can be torment too. Like when people make up lies, and he say that's why Yahushua had to stay humble, right? Because when people start, social media, YouTube, everything gives people access to a lot of things, and they can create stories, slander, rumors, and you hear about these things, and you got to deal with it, and that's hard. Most people think it's not. It's hard, but at the same time, it's part of the purification process as well. But it says, but we talking about self-indulgence. But it says, so being tormented and punished for the whole year, the man remembers at length the self-indulgence and deceit. Now you start to remember. That's the whole point of this whole thing. Zakar, remember, man. That's why you gotta always remember you was a slave in Mizraim. Always. You be like, man, I remember the time when I had nothing. That's what you gotta recount. You be like, man, why am I so self-indulgent now? And why am I this way? Because stupidity has gotten your mind and you forgot where you came from. And perceiveth that it is on their account that he is suffering these ills. Every man, therefore, that liveth in self-indulgence and is deceived is tormented in this way, because though possessing life, they have delivered themselves over unto death. Why? And what kinds of self-indulgence, sir, say I, are harmful? Every action, saith he, is self-indulgence to man, which he does with pleasure. So there's a time for everything under the sun, every season. There's a time for pleasure. Remember, we go in the book of Ecclesiastes. And these are times that people need to understand. This is why a lot of people, and people say, well, why are a lot of things going haywire? And these are things. I'm gonna show you. People say, I'm gonna show you. Right, so this is the book of Qahalath, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. Ecclesiastes, Qahalath 3:1. This is why your relationships, this is why your harvest, this is why your barak, this is why everything is in haywire. This is why, because you don't understand this. For everything, there is a season. There is a season for everything, just like you see this summer and winter. And a time for every matter under Shamayim, right? A time to be born and a time to die. That's why when Yahushua was born on the 14th day, he was born to die on the 14th day, in between the suns. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. This is why we're getting ready to do. We're getting ready to plant, getting ready to pluck up the harvest. We said, well, make sure you leave some for the fatherless, the joiner, and the widow, right? And it says a time to kill and a time to heal, right? The same thing. When Yahushua came and said, see my side and my hands, right? See my side and my yard, and nail prints. It was a time for him to get killed, but it was a time for him to heal too, but he still had an issue of blood on his side. A time to break down and a time to build up, right? It was a time to break down everything you had, but then now it's time to build up. A time to weep. Remember he said, why are you weeping, woman? And a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance, right? When it was a time of mourning, then it was a time to dance when you found out Yahushua was risen. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. That's why from the first day all the way to the 16th day, and even further than that, you start to see people abstaining from certain things, right? Even when a woman gets a menstrual cycle, you got to abstain from embracing things and touching people. The same thing when it came to removing all the ayul out of your tent and going from the first day to the 16th day. You start to see the transitions of it's a time for embracing, it's a time for not embracing and doing those things. It's a time for not going through sexual pleasure and self-indulgence, because that's what it would have been. Think about it. If you would have did all that during this time, self-indulgent, during this Pesach and this Qahalath, guess what happened? That's your life you're dealing with. And it says, a time to refrain from embracing. This is why a lot of people's marriages messed up. This is why a lot of people, how you say, lives are messed up, relationships. There's a reason, because people don't know time. It's not a time to do that. It's not a time for that either. It's not a time for that. Everything has a season. And when you understand that time, then you understand everything. They understand time. They understand time portals. They understand how to put you in the time loop. Spirits know how to do that. And they know if they keep you in a certain amount of time, they know it can keep you there forever. It's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for shalom. Right? So everybody has to know that. This book is this Shepherd 73 of Codex Sinaiticus. Going to verse 13. We almost finished. And every man, therefore, that liveth in self-indulgence is deceived. Right, here we go. Verse 12. So being tormented and punished for a whole year, the man or woman remembers at length the self-indulgence and deceit, and perceiveth that it is on their account that he or she is suffering these ills. Every man or woman, therefore, that liveth in self-indulgence and is deceived is tormented in this way, because though possessing life, they have delivered themselves over unto death. What kinds of self-indulgence, sir, say I, are harmful? Every action, saith he, in self-indulgence to man or woman, which he does with pleasure. For the irascible man, when he gives the reins to his passions, is self-indulgent. And the adulterer, that's self-indulgent. And the drunkard, self-indulgent. The slanderer, self-indulgent. The liar, self-indulgent. And the misser, self-indulgent. And the defrauder, you self-indulgent. That's why you see why he tells us not to do so. This is the commandment. And he that doeth things akin to these, right? He says, so anything close to it, giveth the reins to his peculiar passions. Therefore, he is self-indulgent in his actions. And all these habits of self-indulgence are harmful to the servants of Elohim, the Aydah. Now you better remember you was a servant in Mizraim. You better remember how they are. Because if you forget, then it's going to be you. On the account of these deceits, therefore, on account of these deceits, therefore they so suffer who are punished and tormented. But these are habits of self-indulgence, likewise, which save men. For many are self-indulgent in doing good, being carried away by the pleasures of giving themselves, it gives to themselves. This self-indulgence then is expedient for the servants of Elohim in doing good, and bringeth life to man and woman of this disposition. But the harmful self-indulgences aforementioned bring to men torments and punishments, right? Right, so that word it said miser, and you heard the word miser. A miser is a person who hoards wealth and lives in wretched conditions to avoid spending money. He said, so you live in like a horrible environment, and you just to save money, driven by extreme stinginess. Right? He's like, he said driven is extreme. That's too extreme. They are defined by an irrational fear of poverty. He's like, they scared because they don't want to spend any money, and reluctance to indulge even in necessities. He's like, man, you need toothpaste. You need soap. You need to wash your body. You need to use those things to make sure you stay clean. You need flour, you need wheat, you need barley. You need things to make sure that you are actually living properly, right? You need to take care of yourself, right? They don't want to do that. Man, that costs too much money. I ain't doing nothing. Poverty and reluctance to indulge even in necessities. Synonyms include tightwad, skinflint, penny pincher, and hoarder, right? Yeah, this is called a miser. He said these are all people It's called self-indulgence. A miser is a person who is reluctant to spend money, sometimes on the point of foregoing even basic comforts and some necessities in order to hoard money or other possessions. So these are all things that he can classify as self-indulgent. And they bring punishments to you. Because think about it. If you're not doing the basic necessities, then you know what happens? It makes you irritable, upset, hating life. I don't love life. I hate it. Right? You start to become this person, and it changes you into this I don't care anymore type person. And then you start to be like those people, the men in the field, don't want to leave anything anymore. You start changing, you'll transform yourself into some miserable person when you live like that. So it's best to, when you have things, to enjoy your life. Enjoy what you have and open your arms wide. And if you become poor and you keep doing good with it, Yahuah will never make you poor if you're doing good with the things you're doing. Why would he do that? He rewards those who gives it. Lending to the poor is like lending to Yahuah. All these are a part of these things. He said, don't forget where you came from. But don't live like that. Because he's going to make you miserable. It's going to make you hate life. It's going to make you hate people. That's all it's going to do. So self-indulgence is excessive and unrestrained gratification for one's own appetites, desires, and whims, often prioritizing immediate pleasure over long-term consequences. It acts as a coping mechanism for stress, depletion, or past deprivation. That's why people commit adultery, fornication. They do all these things. These are all self-indulgent behaviors. That's why they slander. It's all a part of, because it's a coping mechanism. It's a stress depletion or past deprivation. If they did somebody wrong or they did you wrong, they have to slander you in order for them to get some kind of coping mechanism to make you feel a certain way, potentially leading to guilt or unhealthy habits. Why? Because it just creates things in your life. Self-indulgence is excessive or unrestrained gratification for one's own desires, often prioritizing immediate pleasure over long-term well-being or responsibilities. Common examples include overeating, excessive spending, right? But now it says, he says, so what do you mean misery versus excessive spending? You're talking about basic needs, like you're leaving extreme. That's just crazy. Then it says excessive spending is somebody who just overly excessively, man, I got like 15 of them things, right? 20 of them things, right? I got 150 of them things. What do you mean? Man, that's excessive. He's like, man, I got 5 barns of barley, right? Now I'm gonna make 2 more, just in case. Compulsive social media browsing, right? So there we go. Over self-indulgent, a neglecting duties of leisure, right? All that free time you got, neglecting duties of leisure, cleaning your body, cleaning your house, doing the necessities in your heart. All these things you got to do. You say these are all you neglecting all that leisure time. And you say, man, I ain't getting nothing done. It's often stems from the need of instant gratification. Then now you want instant gratification. And people, if they don't do it for you, then you get upset. You get angry. You get irritable. You wanna start fighting. You wanna start doing all types of things. Instant gratification, you just go plant some seeds. There ain't nothing instant about it. Boop boop. Right, it ain't gonna happen. You gonna have to wait. That's why people say, go out in the field, go plant. You'll find out, you go to sleep right afterward. You'll be like, man, I was out here all day. Man, I'm tired. And you go to sleep. Why? Because this is part of this whole thing. But these are all a part of it. Instant gratification, right? This book of Sirach 37, 27, 31. My son and daughter, prove thy soul in thy life, and see what is evil for it. Like that's what this whole 24 days, 25 days is about. You want to see what is evil for it, and give not that unto it. Don't even do it. After you figure it out, it's evil. It's wrong. For all things are not profitable for all men and women. It ain't. It's not. Neither have every soul pleasure in everything. Everybody don't have pleasure in everything. Be not unsatiable in dainty things, nor too greedy upon food. That's what meats is. It says food. Because any type of food you eat in excess, I assure you, it's going to do damage to you. For excess of food bringeth sicknesses, and surveying will turn into choler, into like a disease. But by surveying, many have perished. But he that taketh heed prolongeth his life. Now you see why people die. Because the body was never designed to eat all that food. If you think the body was designed to eat all that food, you are mistaken. Now you see why the world all destroyed, the earth destroyed, the animals destroyed, the plants, the trees, the fruitful trees destroyed. I need 50 apples, right? I need 150 of them, right? I mean, you know, one apple can fill a whole glass up, maybe two. You need 50. I need 60 bottles of apple juice, right? And I'm gonna eat it all. These are all part of it. You'd be like, man, why people die early? That's the reason. Testament of Asher, chapter 1, 31 through 33. All these things, therefore, I proved in my life. So he just said, prove thy soul in this life. So he's talking about more things he proved in his life. Right? You got to do that. Right? So this is the book of so this is the book of, this is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 8. 2 Corinthians, chapter 8 and verse 7. 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 7. But as you excel in everything, in amunah, in speech, in knowledge. Oh, so the standards is the standard. You know how it talks about that your righteousness exceed the scribes and the Pharisees. You know, I said many have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. But as you excel in everything, in amunah, that's in your belief, in speech, in where you speak, your kindness and the words that come out of your mouth, wisdom, in knowledge and being ahamada'ah, in earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you excel in this act of Khan also. What does he mean by that? Going to verse 3, going up 8 and 3. 8 and 2, going to 8 and 2. For in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy, their extreme poverty have overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means. So they're not self-indulgent. They're not a miser. They still gave according to their means, as I can testify, and beyond their means of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the Qhdshim, and this not as we expected, but they gave themselves first to Yahuah. Because you know why? Because Yahuah is their inheritance. Because you are a royal priesthood. And then by the will of Elohim to us. Because they did what? That's what Omer is. He said, don't you even do anything. Matter of fact, until you gave me mine first. Before you gave to Yahuah first. Right? And you get what it says. Begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the Qhdshim. And this not as we expected, but they gave themselves first to Yahuah, and then by the will of Elohim to us. Accordingly, we urge Titus, as he has started, so he should complete among this act of Khan. But as you excel in everything, in amunah, in speech, in knowledge, in earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you excel in this act of Khan also. I say this not as a command, but to prove by your earnestness of others, that your love also is genuine. For you know the Khan of our Master Yahushua Mashiach, that though he was rich, that though he was rich, yet for the sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty may become rich. Why do you think in Qahalath Sinaiticus we talk about the suffering of the household and reproach, bearing reproach? We talk about the ish, or the head of the household, or the person, he gonna suffer. He said you can't suffer until he becomes poor. Because when you have abundance, nobody in your household can suffer because of their sins. So therefore he oppresses the head so he can be poor so that you can be rich again. Rich in what? That you may repent. Because that's true riches. But get what it says. For you know the con of our master Yahushua, Mashiach, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you may, by his poverty, may become rich. That's the whole point. Then you be prosperous again once you repent. Once you repent, believe on Yahushua Mashiach, you repent your sins, and guess what? You prosperous again, and you become rich. And you get up, you rise in righteousness the right way. So then when you have stuff in your field, you ain't gonna do evil to people. Right? And in this matter, I give my judgment. This benefits you, who a year ago started not only to do this work, but also to the desire to do it. So now finish doing it as well, so that your readiness is in desiring it may be matched by your completing it out of what you have. For if the readiness is there, it is acceptable according to what a person has, not according to what he does not have. So please be like, man, you got this, you got that. It's only according to what a person has. If I don't have it, there's nothing you can do about it. People want things, be like, I don't have it. Well, you got all this other stuff. Well, I don't have it, right? For I do not mean that others should be eased and you burdened, but that as a matter of fairness, your abundance at the present time should supply their need, so that their abundance, not their wants and their self-indulgence. No. You know what I said? Their wants and their need. Food and raiment be content. You say, why? So that their abundance may supply your need, that there may be fairness, as it is written, whosoever gathereth much, have nothing left over. And whoever gathers little, had no lack. But thanks be to Elohim, who put into the heart of Titus the same earnest and care as I have. For he not only accepted our appeal, but being himself very earnest in he is doing to you of his own accord. With him we are sending the Akim, who is famous among the such and such. Right, you have to skip over that. Right, going back to the Testament of Asher, chapter 1, verse 30. All these things, therefore, I prove in myself, and I wandered not from the truth of Yahuah. And I searched out the commandments of Yahuah, walking according to all my strength and singleness of face unto that which is good. It's a good thing for a Kohanim to practice good. Take heed, therefore, you also, my children, to the commandment of Yahuah, following the truth with singleness of face. For they that are double-faced are guilty of a twofold sin. Now you see why you offer 2/10 of an ephah. You say, why? Why do you think Yahushua cried out twice on totality? Because it's been double-faced people. Remember, they said, he's calling for all Yahuah. My Elohim, why hast thou forsaken me? And then he cried out again. He's a double-faced. They thought it was another person. He thought he was seeking all Yahuah face, not even knowing they were seeking Yahuah face. The double-faced are guilty of twofold sins, for they both do the evil thing, and they have pleasure in them that do it. That's what he said in Romans chapter 1. We're not going to read it. Following the example of the spirits of deceit. Isn't it? We just read that. That's what self-indulgence and miseries and all that is. That's the spirit of ruach of deceit. Striving against mankind. That's why they oppress you. Remember when you was a slave in Mizraim. Remember when you was a slave in Mizraim. Don't you do that again. You better remember where you came from. And that's the whole point. Striving against mankind. Do ye therefore, my children, keep the law of Yahuah, and give not heed unto evil as unto good. But look unto the thing that is really good, and keep in it all commandments of Yahuah, having your conversation therein and resting therein. You don't want to rest with the other stuff, right? You don't want to rest with that, right? You don't want to rest with that. This is Dead Sea Scrolls, column 6Q, 4Q 257. I know people don't like this, but still got to do it. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of Adam. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of true justice, right? That's true judgment. Why do you think Yahushua was talking to the scribes and the Pharisees about eating in the cornfield, eating in the field, right? You trying to condemn me? Why do you think he was doing that? It's true justice. Establishing in their heart respect for the precepts of Elohim and the Ruach of Einu. That's what he was trying to show them. Of patience and generous compassion, eternal goodness and intelligence, understanding and potent wisdom, with trust in all the deeds of Elohim depends on his abundant mercy. A Ruach of knowledge in all plans of action, of enthusiasm, decrees of justice, and set apart plans and firm purpose and generous compassion, with all the sons of truth, of magnificent purity, which detests all unclean idols. That's all the things that you read about when it talks about not going in the field. Even though after you become a Kohanim and you start to practice these things, make sure you don't hearken unto these things that the nations do, right? Of careful behavior and Hakmah, wisdom concerning everything. So you think Yahushua was in the field, you ain't understand? That he was careful. Of concealment concerning the truth of the mysteries and the knowledge. These are the foundations of the Ruachs of the sons of truth in the world. And the reward of those who walk in will be healing. Healing. If you repent. Plentiful shalom and long life. Fruitful offspring with all everlasting barak. Eternal enjoyment and endless life. A crown of kabod and majestic raiment in eternal life. However, the Ruach of deceit. Now, we just read about all these deceitful things that people do. Even in the book of Testament of Asher and in the Codex Sinaiticus. And you just read the Ruach of deceit when you don't leave nothing in the field. And you start oppressing the fathers and the widows and those sojourners. Just like the scribes and the Pharisees did. Guess what? The Ruach of deceit belongs greed. That's why you can't reap all of it. When you reap your harvest, make sure you leave something. Because you're going to have greed. They're going to turn you into a greedy person. That's what a misery is. Hoarding wealth. Because they don't want to do the basic necessities of life just so they can hoard wealth so they ain't got to do nothing extra to provide for anybody else. That's what a misery is. Greed, sluggishness in the service of justice. I'm ready to be quick. Wickedness, falsehood, pride. That's what pride is. Haughtiness of heart. Dishonesty. You start lying. Isn't that one? That self-indulgence. Trickery, self-indulgence. Cruelty, self-indulgence. Much insecurity. Don't want to become poor. That's self-indulgent. Impatience, right? Can't wait. Instant gratification. You need it right away. Much foolishness. Impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts performed in a lustful passion. Adultery, fornication. Self-indulgent. Filthy past in the service of impurity. Blasphemous tongue, blindness of eyes, hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the paths of darkness and evil cunning. And you know what happens after that. And the visitation of those who walk in it will be abundance affliction by the hand of the Malachia, destruction for eternal damnation and scorching wrath of the Elohim that revenges. He's coming for you. It's not a necessity, but when. You know how they say? It's not if, but when he gonna do it. Because it ain't gonna happen immediately. You know, we be thinking. For permanent terror and shame without end, with humiliation and destruction of the fire of the dark regions. And in all ages of the generations, they shall spend in bitter weeping and harsh evils in the abyss of the darkness until destruction, without there being a remnant or survival for them. But there remains a remnant for Yasharal. But also, his world is made in 4 parts. But then also, there's a 10th, though. This is the book of Psalms, Tahalim 116, 1 through 19. I love Yahuah because he has heard my voice and my pleas for mercy. Because he inclined his ear to me, therefore I will call on him as long as I live. The snares of death encompass me. The pangs of Sheol laid hold on me. I suffered distress and anguish. Then I called on the name of Yahuah, and Yahuah, I prayed, deliver my soul. Gracious is Yahuah, and righteous our Elohim is merciful. Yahuah preserves the simple. When I was brought low, he said, when you brought to poverty, guess what? He saved me. Return, O my soul, to your rest. Because there ain't no rest when you rest in other behaviors in evil wrong. For Yahuah has dealt bountifully with you. For you have delivered my soul from death. So how you going to deliver your soul from death? My eyes from tears. Why do you think he did that for the women and all the mourners? My feet from stumbling. I will walk before Yahuah in the land of the living. And don't be like a miser and a self-indulgent person. I believe even when I spoke, I am greatly afflicted. I said in my alarm, all mankind are liars. Kazah. He said they all are liars. That's all. They all self-indulgent. What shall I render to Yahuah for all his benefits to me? I will lift up the cup of Yeshua and call on the name of Yahuah. I'm going to lift up the cup of your salvation. I will pay my vows to Yahuah in the presence of all his people. Precious in the sight of Yahuah is the death of his faithful ones, his Chesed, his kind ones. Because if you kind and you leaving things in the field, what do you think field? Who field was that when Yahushua was walking through his disciples? You don't even know. A no name, no title, no nobody. But he knew who the person was. And he knew that person was keeping the Torah, was righteous, more righteous than the people he was contending with. And he made sure, why are you worried about what I'm doing in somebody's field who actually keeping the law, keeping the Torah and the commandments that I gave them? And he remembering that he was a slave in Mizraim. That's why I'm in this person's field, because this person actually remembers they were a slave in Mizraim. As for you who trying to condemn me for doing something on the Shabbat, you forgot that you were a slave in Mizraim. You forgot everything that the Torah says, and you're sitting here trying to judge somebody when you need to cast a log out of your own eye. Pressed in the sight of Yahuah is the death of his faithful ones. Yahuah, I am your Abad, I am your Abad. Amazingly, he said how many times he said, remember you was a slave in Mizraim? He said it twice in that verse we read. He said, remember you was a slave in Mizraim. Remember you was a slave in Mizraim. That's why Yahushua cried out twice. I remember I was a slave in Mizraim. The son of your maidservant, I am your Abad. You have loosed my bonds. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and call upon the name of Yahuah. That's what we ran doing in the song. And guess what? I will pay my vows to Yahuah in the presence of all his people in the courts of the house of Yahuah in your midst. O Jerusalem, praise Yahuah. Right? So that word for saints in that verse is Chesed. It means faithful, kind, Kudash ones, saints, faithful ones, right? Kind ones. Right? This is Psalms 32, 6 through 9. Therefore, let everyone who is Chesed or kind offer prayer to you at the time when you may be found. When you were found. Everybody should know that. Surely in the rush of great waters, they shall not reach him, even though the flood comes. I don't care if Shaitan come with 150,000 slanders, and 150,000 gossips and slanders and false accusations, 150,000, right? 200,000, right? Words of deceit. It don't matter. Great waters, right? You could be a whole water 1,000 feet high of it. It doesn't matter. They shall not reach him. They ain't gonna affect me at all. You are a hiding place for me. He said, I'll hide in the name of Yahuah. Right? You don't need 1,000 feet. It's only 1,000 feet of slander and gossip and lies and false accusations and all types of other words and things that one didn't do. Right? But at the same time, they're gonna flood you with it and try to flood your mind with it, so it can take over your mind. Because the enemy come in like a flood, Satan come in like a flood, but the Ruach will lift up a standard. I used to think on Yahushua, but he would lift up above all that. Come down from the cross. We'll believe in you. You liar. You false accusation. Right? You gonna tear down the temple. You threaten my life. You threaten our lives. Right? All that stuff. You know that foolishness. Why do you think they're trying to get them to come down? That's why they do it. That's why they flood you with it. They flood the airway. They flood YouTube. They flood emails. All types of stuff. Right? You preserve me from trouble. You surround me with shouts of deliverance, Selah. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. That's why he said, why are you walking this way? Why he teaching us in the way we should go? Because of the things that one has to do. And then what one has been doing, now he's refining certain things that one was doing. That's all it is. Be not like a horse and a mule without understanding, because you know what a horse and a mule is. Then you're going to be neighing at your neighbor's wife. You know how we learned in Ezekiel? You'd be neighing, and right, you'd be trooping to a harlot. You'd be trooping to the house of Baal. You'd be trooping to the house of Asher. You'd be trooping to another house. Right? That's what you'd be doing. Be not like a horse and a mule without understanding, which must be curbed with bits and bridle. Right? That's what it is. Bits and bridle. Oh, it will not stay near you. He said, man. He said, don't be like that. That just, here's a little bit. Here's a little bit. He's saying, we're not like that. We don't do that. Not here. Right? Therefore, let everyone who is godly or conceived offer prayer in the time he may be found. Right? So if you're a kind one, he says, I'm talking to you. This is Psalms 37, 7 through 11. Be still before Yahuah and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in the way. Don't get angry. Over the man who carries out evil devices. Yeah, you see it. You're like, man, how they prosper? Refrain from anger. So please don't be thinking, why does it tell you refrain from anger? Because you're going to get angry. You'll never get angry. You know how they say? They say be angry about sin. You'll never get angry. You're angry. And forsake wrath, right? That's what you got to do. You got to forsake wrath. That's the next phase of it. Fret or Qahalath not yourself. It tends only to evil. That's what anger does. When you start getting angry or upset because one person is prospering and you ain't, it's going to tend to evil. It's going to create wrath. That's why he tells you not to be a miser or a self-indulgent individual. Right? For the evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait for Yahuah shall inherit the Aydah. Right? So you gotta wait. Even though he said, but remember you were a slave in Mizraim. I know what they're doing. But he said, you're gonna inherit the whole earth. Just a little while the wicked will be no more, though you look carefully at his place, he will not be there, man. He said, man, that place so big. Man, you see how big their crib is, right? Their house, and all that stuff that people see. They get upset too. He said, man, your house is 2,400 square feet. It ain't 71,000 square feet. With all types of stuff. Please don't be thinking, he be like, man, your house, man, please. These people crazy, right? But the meek, verse 11, 37:11. But the meek, the Anu, shall inherit the Aydah and delight themselves in abundance of shalom, right? That's what you ain't gonna get no peace if you upset about somebody prospering in the way. That's evil, carrying out evil devices. Man, you'll never be peaceful. Right? You never will. It just a matter, you just gotta just find joy in just simple things. Just sitting outside looking at the trees and the animals and the wind and all that stuff, right? But that word for meek is Anu. And it's an iron, because you gotta see that. You got to. It means, but the Anu, the meek, the poor, the humble, the afflicted. Why do you think you're afflicting your soul? What do you think all these things are? Lowly, the needy. Why do you think he talks about the needy shall inherit the earth? So how did they have to work for those inheritance that they got in that field? Remember they were going in the field, the grape field, the olive field, the grain field, the omer, the harvest and all that. Did they have to work for that? No. They inherited the Aydah. It was theirs. That was their inheritance, because the inheritance of who? The priest is Yahuah. That's the inheritance of the priest. It's Yahuah. So they need their food. And it says what? The meek, the humble, the lowly, the poor, the meek. That is their food. Right? And that's the whole point of it. You did inherit the Aydah. You should be able to go get some food. Man, that's for me. You should. It's an inheritance. It's an inheritance you didn't even have to work for. It's like, man, it's a whole field of plums, apples, right, grapes, things I can eat and carry it and eat, and I'll never go starving, right? It's there. It's right there. It should be. Man, that's a whole banana tree right there in the middle of the thing, right? Just like we went to that one, it had everything right there, right? It's right there. You inherit the Yahuah, right? But guess what? If everybody did that, everybody would understand what inheriting the Yahuah means, right? But listen, as we actually shall king, how demons get power over men, women, and children, right? Therefore, demons, as we have just said, when once they have been able, by means of opportunities afforded them, to convey themselves through base and evil actions in the bodies of men, women, and children, if they remain in them a long time through their own negligence. So if you transgress the Torah, you're going to have demons. Yeah, you're going to have them. Because they do not seek after what is profitable for their inner beings. Their necessity compels them for the future to fulfill the desires of the demons that dwell in them: misery, greed, self-indulgent. But what is worst of all, at the end of the age, when the demons are co-signed to ageless fire, the necessity of the Ruach also that obeyed him will with him be tortured in ageless fires, together with his body it has polluted. Now you see why it says, how beautiful are the feet who bring good news. That's why they put like basur or basar, because it's good news to your flesh that you can now get yourself out of this situation of having been tormented in your body with demons in it. So it's good news, gives power over the shadim to get them out of you, the basar, out of your flesh. It has the power when you start believing on him, as the scripture has said, because the demons don't like Yahushua Mashiach. They be crying out. They don't like that. They don't like that knowledge, because it's all a part of it, right? This is Romans chapter 8, 6 through 11. For to set your mind on the flesh is death, but to set your mind on the Ruach is life and peace. What was the death part of that verse in Devarim when they leave stuff in the field? If they didn't do it. That means they're sitting there. Remember, if you don't leave any omer, you only care about your own flesh. You don't care about the other people. If you gather in all your grapes and you didn't eat no omer for them, guess what? If you gather in all your harvest and your grain and you forget to take your omer, don't go back. Use what you got. Right? It's on your flesh, but to set your mind on the Ruach is life and peace. The Ruach says, I need to make sure I help other people. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile against Elohim. And then now you see why the scribes and the Pharisees were hostile against Yahushua Mashiach. He like, y'all are the flesh. You really upset about me for going in this field? You really upset at me for eating something? And the priest Kohanim do the same thing? You hostile. Right? For it does not submit to Yahuwah's law. Indeed, it cannot. It can't. You can't do that when we read Devarim. You can't do that when we read in Devarim 18. You can't do that when we read in Devarim. Right? You can't do it. Those who are of the flesh cannot please Yahuwah. Ain't nowhere in the world. Because that pleases Yahuwah by doing what he commanded. You, however, are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach. If in fact the Ruach of Yahuwah dwells in you, anyone who does not have the Ruach of Mashiach does not belong to him. He said, you don't belong to me. That's why Yahushua like, you ain't my Isha. That's like, Yahushua like, you ain't my Isha if you doing that. You ain't my bride. You somebody else's woman. That's literally what he's saying. That's what he said, as the Mashiach, as the body is subject to Mashiach, so that the Isha be subject to each and everything. So he like, you're not my Isha. But if Mashiach, Yahushua is in you, because I ain't in you, because I ain't sowed my seed in you, and you ain't pregnant. You know what I'm saying? That's just hypothetically. I'm using your seed as the bar. Because if he's in you, although the body is dead because of sin, your body, your natural man should be dead, your flesh, because it don't want to do it. It don't want to do that. Man, I need to gather that extra in, man. I get that extra cash flow because I need that thing. I need that extra money. He said, no. Leave that for somebody else. Right? Because even the bar words that you put out here, seeds, he said, leave it out there because they need it. Because they don't know what they're doing. They need to know. They need food. They got to work. They slaves. They poor. Right? The Ruach is life, because of righteousness. That's what it'd be our righteousness if we keep his commandments. If the Ruach of him who raised up Yahushua from the dead dwells in you, if it's in your Arun, and the Aydah is in your Arun, and the Qahalath is on top of it, and the lid, how you gonna get mercy if you don't do it? How you gonna get mercy? It dwells in you. He who raised up Mashiach, Yahushua, from the dead, will also give life to your mortal bodies. Rise up, Yahuah, and let your enemies be scattered. How you gonna get up from the grave? Rise up, Yahuah, and let your enemies be scattered. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity, for I'm going to keep the commands of Yahuah. You know that field over there? That's yours. See that field? That's yours too. See that little bit, that stuff I love? That's yours. Anything you want, man, it's all right there in the field, man. Go pick what you need. Go get what you need. It's right there. Hey, all that word out there, you can have it. It's free of charge. As I freely receive, I ain't had to pay for it. You be like, man, I made this seed. Look at all this seed I put. I made the ground to put it. I made the earth to put the seed at the bar out here. I did all that. It should be mine. I should gather in anything that come to me, right? No, it's theirs. It's free. As I freely received, the seed was free, the earth, I got here for free, everything free. The water free, the sun free. The sun is free, right? The water that come down is free. The snow is free. Everything's free. The ground is free. I take the seed, I put it in the ground for free. Then anything that come up is free. Ain't that something? Anything that comes up after you plant the seed is free indeed. Everything free. You breathe, neshama, ruach, free. It's a free gift if you want it. Anything you plant, it come up, it's free. It should be free. It shouldn't be nothing be costing you nothing. Free. It's free. What do you mean free? Why do you think he said today is the day of Chdsh? Wait, Chdsh mean what? Freedom. You plant the seed, it come up, man. That's free. You should be free, right? You free. He said, that's free, man. Verse 11. If the Ruach of him who raised up Yahushua from the dead dwells in you, who raised Mashiach from the dead, will also give life to your mortal bodies, though through his Ruach who dwells in you. This is Aleph Yukanan 1, 2, 20, 24 to 28. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. And if what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son, the life of the house, and the Father, the strength of the house. And this is the promise he has made to us, eternal life, because the promise was given to the priests. He said, the inheritance of the priest, the Kohanim of Luah, was Yahuah, and the promises to them. For you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a Kohan, royal Kohanim, a diadem, who shows forth or gives and shows the praises of Yahuah, who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you, but the anointing you receive from him abides in you. It should be there. And you have no need that anyone should teach you. But as his anointing teaches you about everything, and it's true, and it's no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. And now, little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, you may have confidence. You have to have confidence. You have to see how Yahuah sees you, not as a human being sees you. You have to have that confidence. Not just one person. You have to have the confidence. And not shrink from him in shame at his coming. Because we have sinned. Because he wants people to be in confidence when he comes. Not people in shame at his coming. Man, so what happened? Yeah, this and this happened, and this happened. Right? And when he comes, he's always gonna have something for you. Or he's gonna have judgment, but at the same time, he also has something that other people don't have in this world. Some kind. Right? You know, the little things that people don't think that he has. He still has that. He's faithful and true. What do you mean, faithful and true? He's kind-hearted. A lot of things that he does is a part of it. And that's the whole point. Because that's when Adam sinned. What happened with Adam? When Yahuah came walking in the garden, he was hid. He was high. He was in shame. And he said, what happened? What happened? What did everybody do? Right? And everybody started blaming each other. Then he dished out some judgment on people. But then he allowed everybody to live. Notice he didn't kill everybody. He didn't kill Nakash, he didn't kill Kua, and he didn't kill Adam either. Notice that. He ain't destroyed none of them. He just said, you know what? Go and sin no more. That's the worst thing happened to you. But here's your punishment, though, because you did that. You're going to have some struggles in the flesh. And you have to get back to the Ruach, man, in order to control it. Because if you don't, you're just going to continue to commit sin. So, you're going to need to know it. You know the Nakash that deceive you, he on the ground. And he got to bow his face to the ground. But at the same time, he going to bruise your heel, you're going to bruise his head. Why? Because of all the stuff he did. I know you're angry and I know you're upset at him. I know you probably want to take him out. But at the same time, you can't. You know what it says? You can't. Right? You can't. You just have to. Right? It's just a part of life. And that's just the whole point. Right? This book of Sirach 3:17-23. My son and daughter, go on thy business in Aydah and meekness. So shall thou be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more Aydah humble thyself. And thou shalt find favor before Yahuah. Many are in high places of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the Aydah, the meek. For the power of Yahuah is great and honor with the lowly. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. Right, you gotta always remember that. He said, don't be a miser. Don't be a self-indulgent individual. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men, women, and children understand. Right, so we look at Yahushua Mashiach, we look at him as the sheaf that was waved in the air, knowing that he said you're supposed to deliver the sheaf over to the Kohanim. And knowing that the Kohanim, Yahushua came by night and delivered the sheaf over to the Kohanim. And they offered them up above the people. And yet he waved the sheep. They waved the sheep, not even knowing they were waving the transgressions that they did. Knowing that sheaf that they were raising was actually Yahushua Mashiach. And knowing that the beating of him was actually the beating of the sojourners, the fatherless, and the widows. Knowing that all the things that they did to oppress people, they forgot that they were slaves in the land of Mizraim. And even as some today forget that they were slaves in the land of Mizraim, even after taking Pesach, even as it says they brought them out of Mizraim, but in actuality, some people still have in their heart unfinished business that they did to other people in the mindset of Mizraim. And these are all a part of the understanding of who one is. And one must follow Yahushua's steps in order to purge out all the evil that was in from Mizraim. And not to treat him like we did at Mashah in the wilderness. And if you do that, you're going to find yourself in some very tough situations in your life. But at the same time, we look at him as the author and finisher of our Amunah. And our Amunah is to be in his Malkut and to travel as we travel along the 7 celestial circles. And the 7 muads and the 7 cogs and the 7 muads, and moving along the 7 celestial circles, and to not be stiff-necked, and to return to him with our whole mind, soul, and being. Knowing that even as we walk in this life, we should walk in the purity of mind, knowing that he is coming back. And he is coming back. And one don't need to be caught in your foolishness. Because the foolishness that men do today is all a part of their own flesh. They that of the flesh, mind the things of the flesh. But they that of the Ruach, mind the things of the Ruach. So we look at all these things. We look at, he said, my son and my daughter, go on thy business that ain't new. So shall be beloved of him that is approved, right? The greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor before Yahuah. Many are in high places of renown, but mysteries are revealed to the Aydah, the meek. For the meek shall inherit the Yarats. The meek shall inherit the Yarats.